My name is Amelia. For most of my 40 years, I've thought of myself as a quiet river, flowing steadily along a predetermined path, nurturing the landscape around me without asking for much in return. I'm an architect, a creator of spaces, and I suppose I've always tried to be an architect of peace in my family, too. I live in Bridgewell, a city of brick and glass that hums with a restless energy, but my heart has always belonged to the quiet places, the ones that smell of damp earth and old wood. This story, however, isn't about the spaces I've built for others. It's about the one I had to reclaim for myself. It begins, as so many endings do, with a simple, hopeful gesture. Last Friday, with the afternoon sun slanting golden through my office window, a project I'd been wrestling with for weeks finally clicked into place. The sudden lightness in my chest felt like a gift, one I wanted to share. So, I closed my laptop, left work early, and drove to a little French patisserie called Le Petit Four, the kind of place where the air itself seems dusted with powdered sugar. I bought a box of almond croissants, their delicate shells flaking at a touch, and a rainbow of macarons for my sister, Sophie. It was a spontaneous celebration, a surprise for my family, who were gathered for the weekend at my country house in Ashenwood. Instead, I found them toasting to having a generous benefactor with more money than sense. And that benefactor, that sweet, simple fool, was me. Standing in my own hallway, the buttery scent of pastries mingling with the bitter taste of betrayal, I listened to the people I had built my world around as they gleefully plotted their next withdrawal from the Bank of Amelia. It wasn't a freight train that hit me. It was a slow, creeping flood of ice water, freezing everything I thought I knew to be true. I wasn't the family's anchor. I was their asset. And this is how I went from being their cherished provider to teaching them the cost of taking someone for granted. 3 years earlier, my life had been neatly dismantled and was waiting to be reassembled. My marriage to Liam had ended not with a bang, but with the quiet sigh of a book being closed after the final page. We had been good friends who had tried to be partners for a decade, and in the end, the friendship was all that remained. Our divorce was a portrait of civility, a series of polite meetings and signatures on paper. We had no children to fight over, no dramatic betrayals to dissect. There was only the house, our house in Ashenwood. It wasn't a grand estate, just a rambling, cedar-sided home nestled on 5 acres of whispering pines and tangled blackberry bushes. It had a deep wraparound porch, where you could watch thunderstorms roll in over the hills, and a stone fireplace that smelled of wood smoke even in July. It was our shared dream, bought with the first real money I made after starting my architectural firm, Hearthstone Designs. Liam, a software developer who thrived on the city's pulse, never truly settled there. "It's your soul place, Ames," he said during one of our final, gentle conversations. "You keep it." And so, in the quiet accounting of our shared life, the house became mine. My plan was practical, logical. I would sell Ashenwood. A single woman didn't need a 4-bedroom house an hour outside of Bridgewell. The sale would give me the freedom I craved, enough capital to buy a sleek, minimalist loft downtown, close to my firm, with no mortgage to tie me down. It would be a clean slate, a space that was entirely my own, unburdened by shared memories. I made the mistake of mentioning this plan over Sunday dinner at my parents' house. My mother, Eleanor, a retired literature teacher, had a gift for wielding sentiment like a weapon. She paused, her fork halfway to her lips, her expression a perfect blend of sorrow and disbelief. "Sell Ashenwood? Amelia, darling, you can't." My father, Robert, a retired electrician, whose hands still looked like they could wrestle a generator into submission, grunted in agreement. "It's a good piece of land. You don't let go of good land." But it was my younger sister, Sophie, who delivered the masterstroke. Sophie was 5 years my junior, a vibrant, charming whirlwind who managed a high-end boutique and collected friends like she did vintage scarves. Oh, Ames, no, she cried, her eyes wide. Think of it. It could be our family sanctuary. We could have Thanksgiving there, with the fire crackling. Summer weekends with barbecues and croquet on the lawn. It would be a place for all of us to gather. She was dating a man named Mark then, a pleasant IT consultant who nodded along earnestly. They were serious, and I could already see the future Sophie was painting. Holidays filled with future nieces and nephews, the house echoing with laughter. I tried to explain my side. The upkeep, the distance, the practicality of being mortgage-free. But then my mother reached across the table and covered my hand with hers. Her skin was soft, her touch familiar and comforting. Please, Amelia, she whispered, her voice catching just so. For the family. For us. It would mean so much. When your mother, who rarely asks for anything, looks at you with tears welling in her eyes and says, for us, logic evaporates. The dream of the debt-free loft dissolved into a fog of familial duty. I had always been the reliable one, the good daughter, the successful older sister. It was a role I understood. It was a role I had, until that moment, been proud to play. How could I deny them this one source of joy? So, I didn't sell. I kept Ashenwood. I found a smaller, perfectly adequate two-bedroom apartment in a decent neighborhood in Bridgewell and took out a mortgage. It wasn't the sun-drenched loft of my dreams, but it was home. The monthly payments were a constant, humming reminder of my choice, but I told myself it was worth it. The first thing I did for the Ashenwood house was invest in its security. A single woman, a remote property, was a practical concern. I spent nearly $5,000 on a state-of-the-art system, cameras covering every angle of the exterior, motion sensor lights, and an alarm monitored by a private company. Peace of mind had a price, and I paid it willingly. I gave a spare key and the alarm code to my mother. The look of pure delight on her face as she accepted it seemed to justify every dollar. For the next 3 years, the house became exactly what they had envisioned. My parents drove out for quiet weekends, rekindling their romance on the porch swing. Sophie and Mark used it as their personal romantic getaway, filling the kitchen with the scent of gourmet meals. Holidays were loud, joyful affairs. The house swelled with family, my parents, Sophie and Mark, my Aunt Carol and her husband, my Uncle David and his kids. I would look around at the firelit faces, the shared laughter, and feel a deep, satisfying warmth. I was the facilitator of this happiness. The mortgage payment seemed a small price for that feeling. My firm was thriving, and the financial requests from my family began to feel like a natural extension of my role. They were always small at first, couched in apologies and promises to pay me back that were never mentioned again. Sophie would call in tears, short on rent for her stylish apartment. $750, Ames, I'm so embarrassed to ask, but my commission check was late. I'd transfer the money without a second thought. My father needed a loan of $1,500 for urgent car repairs. My Aunt Carol needed $2,500 for what she tearfully described as an emergency roof leak. Each time, I gave freely. I was their safety net, and the feeling of being so capable, so needed, was its own kind of currency. Mark's parents, Susan and Tom, started joining our gatherings. They were pleasant, if a bit formal, and it was clear that a wedding was on the horizon for Sophie and Mark. I was happy for them, picturing my sister walking down an aisle, a future I was helping to secure. Then came the Tuesday evening phone call that set the stage. It was my mother, her voice bright with manufactured cheer. Amelia, darling. Just wanted to let you know, we're planning a big family get-together this Friday at Ashenwood. A proper summer kickoff. It'll be me and your dad, Sophie and Mark, Susan and Tom, plus Carol and David's whole crew. Can you make it? I glanced at my calendar, a mess of deadlines and client meetings. Oh, Mom, I wish. I have that huge quarterly presentation on Friday. I'll be lucky to get out of the office before 10. Oh, what a shame, she said, her disappointment expertly measured. Well, don't you worry about a thing. Your work is so important. We'll all raise a glass to you. I hung up feeling a familiar pang of guilt mixed with relief. I loved my family, but the pressure to be on at these gatherings could be exhausting. I put it out of my mind and focused on my presentation. Friday morning, the world shifted. I was in my suit, triple-checking my slide deck, when my phone rang. It was my senior partner. Amelia, bad news. The clients from the city council are stuck in traffic due to a pileup on the interstate. They are not going to make it. We have to postpone until next week. He must have heard the tension release in my sigh. Go home, he said kindly. Take the afternoon. You've earned it. I stood in my silent office, the city humming below. My family was at Ashenwood. The sun was shining. A free Friday. The idea sparked in my mind, bright and exhilarating. I could surprise them. I pictured their faces, the shock turning to delight as I walked in with treats. It felt like the perfect, spontaneous act of love. The drive to Le Petit Four was filled with happy anticipation. I bought 2 boxes of their finest offerings, a fragrant, buttery arsenal of joy. As I turned onto the long, gravel driveway leading to the house, my heart swelled. The cars were all their me parents' sensible sedan, Sophie's bright blue hatchback, Mark's polished SUV. Lights glowed from every window, and the murmur of happy voices drifted on the afternoon air. Wanting the full effect of the surprise, I parked quietly down the lane and walked up. I used my own key, easing the front door open with the stealth of a cat. The hallway was dim, and the voices from the living room were clearer now, punctuated by laughter. I took a deep breath, a wide grin spreading across my face, ready to call out, surprise. Then I heard my mother's voice, clear as a bell, dripping with a kind of smug amusement I had never heard before. Honestly, the best thing that ever happened was Liam leaving her. Amelia is so much more pliable on her own. A chorus of knowing laughter followed. It wasn't warm or joyful. It was sharp, cruel. I froze, my hand still on the doorknob, the pastry boxes suddenly feeling like lead weights. I pressed myself back against the cool plaster of the hallway wall, my pulse thundering in my ears. You're not wrong, Eleanor, my father's voice boomed. Remember how she was dead set on selling this place? A little sob story about family memories, and she caves. Now we have a 5-acre vacation home, and she's paying a mortgage in the city. The girl's heart is bigger than her brain. She has no spine whatsoever, my mother added, and the casual cruelty of it stole my breath. This wasn't a joke. This was an assessment. Then Sophie spoke, and her words were the ones that shattered me completely. Oh, it gets better. You know how I'm always short on rent. I haven't been short on rent in 2 years. That extra $750 a month from Ames goes right into my Chanel and vacation fund. She giggled. She never asks for proof, just sends the money. It's like having a magic button for cash. The room erupted. I felt a wave of nausea so profound, I had to grip the wall to stay upright. Every worried phone call, every time I had felt that swell of sisterly pride at being able to help her, it was all a lie. A long-running, cynical joke. My Aunt Carol chimed in. That reminds me. That emergency roof leak money from last year. David and I spent a week in the Bahamas. Amelia paid for the whole trip. She thought she was keeping rain out of my living room. And my car repairs, my father chuckled. That was a down payment on my new fishing boat. The numbers spun in my head. $750 a month, $1,500. $2. 500 threads of deception weaving a tapestry of my own foolishness. They hadn't just taken my money. They had taken my kindness, my trust, and twisted it into a punchline. Then I heard a voice I recognized as Mark's father, Tom. It's quite the setup you have here. A family benefactor, who just keeps on giving. She's our golden goose, my mother said, her voice filled with a chilling satisfaction. And the best part is, she feels good about it. She thinks she's being a wonderful, generous daughter. Well, we need to keep her laying those golden eggs, my father said. Can't have her getting wise. Oh, don't worry, my mother said, and I could hear the excitement in her tone, the sound of a predator closing in. I'm already planning the next big one. Sophie and Mark will be officially engaged any day now. We've been looking at rings, Sophie confirmed. Perfect, Eleanor continued, her voice smooth as silk. When he proposes, we'll hit Amelia up for the wedding. A big, beautiful wedding. We'll tell her it's her duty, as the successful older sister, to give Sophie the day she's always dreamed of. We should be able to get at least 20,000 out of her. Maybe more. A glass clinked. It was my father's voice again, raising a toast. To Amelia. The gift that keeps on giving. The room filled with cheers and laughter. To Amelia. I stood in the shadows of my own home, in the beautiful, peaceful sanctuary I had preserved for them, and felt the foundation of my life crack open beneath me. They didn't love me. They loved what I could do for them. Every gesture of love I had made had been received as a transaction. Every sacrifice, a mark of my stupidity. The warmth in my chest from just an hour before had been replaced by a hollow, cavernous cold. My body moved before my mind did. I turned, silent as a ghost, and let myself out the front door. My hands were shaking so violently, I could barely fit the key back in the lock to secure it. I walked back to my car, the pastry boxes swinging from my hand, a ridiculous prop from a life that no longer existed. I placed them on the passenger seat. The sweet, buttery scent was suddenly nauseating. I drove away from Ashenwood, my sanctuary, my beautiful lie. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too numb, too hollowed out. The tears came later, back in my small, mortgaged apartment. They weren't gentle tears of sadness. They were racking, guttural sobs of rage and a grief so profound it felt like a death. I grieved for the family I thought I had. I grieved for the woman I had been, the trusting, open-hearted fool who had built her home on a foundation of sand. I spent the weekend in a state of suspended animation. My first instinct was to call them, to scream, to unleash the torrent of betrayal that was choking me. But as the initial shock subsided, it was replaced by a cold, crystalline clarity. A confrontation would be useless. They would deny it. They would gaslight me, call me sensitive, tell me I misunderstood. They had shown me who they were. Now, I would have to show them who I was becoming. They had laid out their entire plan, confident in my predictability. They were going to ask me to pay for Sophie's wedding. And I was going to let them point. 2 weeks later, as if on cue, my phone rang. It was Sophie, her voice bubbling with manufactured ecstasy. Ames. Oh my God, it happened. Mark proposed. I'm engaged. I summoned every ounce of my acting ability. Soph. That's incredible. I'm so happy for you. Tell me everything. She gushed about the ring, the romantic setting, the whole performance. Then, my mother got on the line. After the requisite congratulations, her voice shifted into a more serious, conspiratorial tone. Amelia, darling. We want to throw a proper engagement party for them. Here at the house, of course, she said, meaning my house. Something really elegant. Caterers, a string quartet, floral arrangements. A real celebration. That sounds wonderful, Mom, I said, my voice even. Well, there's just one little hitch, she began, her voice taking on a note of gentle distress. To do it right, to really give Sophie and Mark the party they deserve, it's going to be quite expensive. We've priced it out, and it's looking like around $6,000. I let the silence hang for a moment. $6,000 is a lot of money, Mom. I know, honey, and I feel just awful asking, she said, the performance worthy of an award. But with your father's pension and my small savings, we just can't swing it. You're doing so well with your firm, and this is for your only sister. It's a once-in-a-lifetime celebration. I took a slow, deliberate breath. Mom, I can't. I just had a huge, unexpected tax bill come in. My savings are completely wiped out. I just don't have that kind of cash right now. There was a flicker of panic in her voice, quickly suppressed. Oh? Oh, dear. Well. What if we put it all on our credit card for now, and you could just pay us back over the next couple of months? That way, the party can still happen. The trap was set. And she had walked right into it. Oh, Mom, would you? I said, infusing my voice with immense relief. That would be amazing. Yes, let's do that. You go ahead and book everything. Order the best of everything for Sophie. I'll pay you back as soon as I can. I promise. Oh, Amelia, you're a lifesaver, she cooed. I knew we could count on you. Of course, I said, a thin, cold smile on my face. What are families for? The party was set for a Saturday 3 weeks later. During that time, I was a ghost. I answered their excited calls with monosyllabic enthusiasm. I listened to details about canapés and color schemes with feigned interest. Inside, I was building a wall, brick by painful brick. The Thursday before the party, I called a 24-hour locksmith. I need a full replacement of all exterior locks at a property in Ashenwood, I said. Tomorrow evening. Around 8 p.m. On Friday, after work, I drove out to my house. It was transformed. The caterers had already dropped off tables and chairs. My mother and Sophie had been there all day, decorating. They had woven fairy lights through the porch railings, hung paper lanterns from the trees, and set up beautiful floral centerpieces on tables draped in white linen. It looked like a dream. A beautiful, hollow dream. For a moment, a wave of sadness washed over me for the joy that could have been real. Then I remembered the sound of their laughter, and the feeling hardened into resolve. The locksmith, a quiet man named Ben, arrived precisely at 8. He worked efficiently, replacing the locks on the front door, the back door, the French doors leading to the porch. He handed me a set of new, gleaming keys. All set, he said, oblivious to the drama he was facilitating. After he left, I walked through the decorated space. Then, methodically, I began to dismantle it. I unwound every string of lights. I took down every lantern. I stripped the linens from the tables and folded them. I carefully boxed up the floral arrangements. I packed every single element of their planned celebration into my SUV. I left nothing but the bare tables and chairs, stacked neatly against a wall. Finally, I went into the security systems control panel and changed the master code. I drove home under a starless sky, the ghost of a party packed in my car, and slept more soundly than I had in weeks. The next morning, I sent a single text to my mother, feeling terribly unwell. Some kind of stomach flu. So sorry, but I won't be able to make it today. Don't want to get anyone sick. Hope the party is wonderful. Her reply came an hour later, fine. Feel better. No concern. No questions. Just an acknowledgement. It was clear my presence wasn't the point, my financial contribution was. I spent the morning reading, drinking tea, and waiting. At 2 o'clock, my phone began to buzz. It was my mother. I watched it ring, then go to voicemail. A minute later, my father called. I ignored it. Then Sophie. I let that one go, too. A storm of texts began to flood my screen. Mom, Amelia, we're here. The key isn't working, Dad, what did you do to the lock? Can't get in, Sophie, Amelia, answer your phone. Everyone is here and we're locked out. Mom, the caterers are here with all the food. Where are you? This isn't funny. I let them simmer in their confusion for another half hour. I pictured them on my porch, their party guests arriving, the caterers waiting with trays of cooling food, their perfect plan unraveling in the bright afternoon sun. Finally, when my mother called for the 5th time, her tone bordering on hysterical, I answered. Amelia. Thank God, she shrieked. We're all here. Your entire family, Mark's parents, all our friends. We're locked out of the house. The keys don't work. That's odd, I said, taking a calm sip of my tea. Odd? It's a disaster. What's wrong with your locks? Oh, nothing's wrong with them, I replied, my voice as placid as a lake at dawn. I had them changed yesterday. A thick, stunned silence fell on the other end of the line. I could hear muffled whispers. You changed the locks, she finally stammered. Why on earth would you do that? Well, I said, letting the word hang in the air. I was in the hallway a few weeks ago, the day you were all here. I came to surprise you with pastries. Instead, I heard you toasting to your golden goose. I heard everything, Mom. The plans for the wedding, the jokes about my spine, Sophie's Chanel fund. All of it. More silence, heavier this time, freighted with the weight of discovery. Amelia, you must have misunderstood, she tried, her voice shifting into its familiar, placating tone. We were just joking around. I laughed, a short, sharp sound devoid of any humor. Joking. Was it a joke when you took thousands of dollars from me under false pretenses? Is it a joke that you planned to manipulate me into paying for a $20,000 wedding? Because I'm not laughing. I heard Sophie grab the phone. You are being an unbelievable bitch, Amelia, she screamed. You have ruined my engagement party. My one special day. Your special day that you intended to fund by mocking my generosity. I countered, my voice still unnervingly calm. No, Sophie. You and Mom ruined this party when you decided to spend $6,000 of money you didn't have, assuming I was fool enough to cover for you. We're going to break a window, she threatened. I wouldn't do that, I said coolly. Remember that expensive security system I had installed? The one with all the cameras. The moment a window breaks, the alarm will sound and the police will be dispatched. I assure you, I will press charges for trespassing and destruction of property. Sophie let out a frustrated sob and passed the phone back to my mother. Amelia, please, Eleanor begged, all pretense gone, her voice now thin and desperate. Just let us in. We can talk about this. No. There's nothing left to talk about. The locks are changed. The security code is changed. Ashenwood is no longer the family sanctuary. It's my private property. But what about the party? The food? The money we spent, she cried. That was your gamble, Mom. Not my responsibility. My advice is to pack up your guests and find a public park. As for your decorations, they are not there. I took them down last night. You can't do this, she whispered. We're your family. You stopped being my family when you decided I was your bank, I said, and for the first time, I felt the ice around my heart begin to melt, replaced not by warmth, but by the clean, sharp relief of a truth finally spoken. Now, I suggest you get everyone off my property. I hung up and turned off my phone. I didn't need to watch the security feed. I could picture the humiliation, the frantic explanations to the guests, the ignominious retreat. The show was over. The next morning, they appeared at my apartment. Their pounding on the door was insistent, angry. I opened it to find my parents and Sophie, their faces thunderous. "We need to talk," my father said, trying to push his way inside. I stood my ground, blocking the doorway. "No, we don't. You owe us $6,000, my mother declared, her face blotchy with rage. I let out a genuine, weary laugh. "I owe you nothing. You spent money you didn't have based on a lie. That's called a bad investment." Sophie's eyes blazed. "I will never forgive you for this." "Good," I said softly. "Then you'll finally leave me alone." My father pointed a finger at me. "Until you apologize and pay us what you owe, don't consider us your family anymore." A slow, genuine smile spread across my face. "Thank you," I said. "That's the kindest thing you've said to me in years." I looked at each of their stunned faces. "I am no longer your provider, your safety net, or your fool. I am just myself. And it turns out, that's more than enough. Now get away from my door." They left, speechless. That was a year ago. I never sold Ashenwood. In the quiet that followed the storm, I found myself drawn back there. I walked the 5 acres, breathing in the scent of pine and earth. I sat on the porch and watched the thunderstorms roll in. The house, once a symbol of my sacrifice, slowly became a symbol of my reclamation. It wasn't their sanctuary, it was mine. I host workshops there now, for young architects and designers. I fill it with creative energy, with people who appreciate its beauty, not its value. The income it generates more than covers its costs. I saw on social media that Sophie and Mark got married 6 months ago, in a small ceremony at the courthouse. I wasn't invited. I felt a brief, distant pang of sadness for the sister I thought I had, and then it passed. There has been no reconciliation. The silence from them is vast and complete. Sometimes, I wonder if a day will come when an apology might be offered, when true remorse might bridge the chasm between us. But I don't wait for it. I've learned that building healthy boundaries is the most important architecture of all. You must first design a life where you feel safe and respected in your own space. I am still a quiet river, but I have learned to carve my own path. The lesson was painful, the cost immeasurable, paid not in dollars, but in the currency of trust and love. But in losing a family that saw me as an asset, I found something far more valuable, myself. And in the quiet solitude of Ashenwood, under the tall, whispering pines, I am finally, peacefully, home.